All right, hello everybody, and welcome to our Saturday special. Could not be more excited. We've kind of hinted it at this guest that we've had, one of the most familiar faces of the UFC, referee Mike Beltran. You can see him all the time. He does an unbelievable job. We're really, really excited to have him. Mike, I appreciate you taking some time.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
And I got to tell you, the facial hair is looking as luscious as it ever has. I love what you got going on. How long have you been working on that thing? How long has that thing been growing, and what gave you the idea to let it blossom, per se, like this?
Actually, blossom, yeah. Actually, I've been growing it now for, it's going on 17 years now.
Wow, nice. It should have its own Twitter handle.
It should have a lot of something. Gosh, I've had it for about, it's going on 17 years, 16 years approximately, and actually, there is a story. There's a backstory behind the mustache that actually now I can talk about.
Please,
but before I couldn't. Yeah, actually, the real story behind the mustache is not something that I just wanted to arbitrarily just grow and just say, hey, I want to look ridiculous and have this peppy long stocking stuff hanging on my face. But no, actually, I'm a detective with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and I've been a cop now for going on 28 years. And a big part of my the mustache and the look and having the facial hair was, at the time that I was officiating, actually I was working undercover, and actually I was working some undercover assignments, and I was actually working some pretty I would say probably as deep as you could probably go, and as far as being an undercover goes, and so I grew out my facial hair. I didn't want to grow a goatee because everybody had a goatee, and that just wasn't me. I always had a mustache. I'm from East LA, so every homie there has their brocha, their big mustache, and that was something that I've always had. I've always had a mustache, and I just let it grow, and it took an identity of its own. It just grew, and I didn't want to have a beard, so it was actually a mustache. That's the real story behind it, and I was working, like I said, I'm still a cop, and I'm a detective with the Sheriff's Department, and doing the fights. And that's the real story behind it, is that it was because of my undercover assignments that I had. And I had it for, I worked undercover for about 14 years. And wow. So that's the real story behind it. And in the assignments that I worked at, and the cases that I work were very sensitive and very, very complex and very, very deep. So it's cool. It all worked out, and here I am today, and God willing, I'm able to share the stories.
Well, man, number one, I appreciate your service. That's a hell of a story. I had no idea this was not planned. That's a hell of a way to kick it off. But I know you're a fighter yourself, and obviously being a police officer, detective, there at the sheriff's office. When you were fighting, talk a little bit about that, and is that what got you interested in reffing, or was the reffing just a byproduct of what you were doing being undercover? And obviously it's led to you being, one of the faces of the UFC when we turn on the pay-per-view or the ESPN Plus and see you or her there in the ring.
Well, number one, I never fought professionally, so let's just clear that up. I never fought, so I never did fight. I trained. I trained for a long time. So I began training many, many years ago. I began boxing since I was the age of 10 or 11 years old. I boxed and then did a little karate, but I actually enjoyed boxing more than I actually did like the karate side of it. I didn't like the point system. I'd rather hit somebody in the face as a kid than play points, in karate tournaments. But it's still I learned a lot from. Learned the extremities of kicking, and obviously there wasn't MMA back then. And my high school, where I went to school, which was Garfield High School in East Los Angeles, being LA school district alumni there, it was a ghetto schools. It was poor, so there wasn't the wrestling program was non-existent. Hell, we didn't even have I played football, but we didn't even have a football field because the earthquake condemned it. So there wasn't. Our bleachers were down. So. But that's how I began, and I began training, and starting. I saw the UFC, and I got really interested, just like everybody else did several years ago, and I saw this little skinny Brazilian guy named Royce Gracie wearing pajamas, doing magical stuff and choking, ginormous guys out. And it was like, whoa, what the hell is he doing? And it just baffled me. Just like everybody else was shocked by the explosion of and the introduction of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and how effective it is. And it's an amazing art. And I was captivated. I was just like, what the hell am I watching? Just like everybody else was. Now it's ironically, fast forward many years later, Royce Gracie is a very good friend of mine, Hansel Gracie, the Gracie family. And that's been one of the perks of officiating is you get to, see the guys that you saw when you were watching the sport and actually hear their stories and see them implement techniques and talk about it. But that's how I got started. And, actually it was my best friend, which was Joe Camacho, rest in peace. He's the one that told me because, I was working the jails at the time. I was a young deputy working the jails, and I had no idea of the ground game. I never wrestled. That's the last thing I wanted was another dude on top of me, rolling around with me. I was just that removed from everything that I did not know. I was, it just wasn't something I was into, and I never wrestled, so I had no idea of wrestling, and when I began training, Joe's the one that brought me in. He goes, look, you need to try this stuff. It's called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's like magic. It's, this guy, Royce Gracie, he's the same story that I just mentioned. And he picked me up and he goes, I don't want to see you get hurt in the jails or on the streets by punching somebody. You can get an STD or AIDS or, this is the mid 90s. And, hepatitis or something by hitting somebody in the mouth or some funky stuff. He goes, you need to learn this stuff and check it out. Just come with me. He was a 145 pounder. He goes, I want you to, and I was 250 pounds at the time. I was at a men's central jail. I was a big young, big deputy, working out, driving iron. And he took me to the gym. He picked me up from my house. And he says, Mike, I want you to try this. Check this out. He goes, come at me as hard as you can and take me down. I'm like, dude, you're a little dude. I don't want to hurt. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to smash you. I don't want to smash you with my fat ass all over you. So, he just says, no, seriously. The story goes, I got humbled. He threw me. He triangled. He armbarred me. He omoplated me. He did all. He just kicked my butt. Everything. It's a 145 pound dude. I couldn't even hold the guy down. And I was so embarrassed and so humbled. I rolled with everybody there. I didn't even know how to roll. I didn't even know what rolling was. And I got my butt kicked by everybody and at the same gym that I train at now, which is New Breed Academy in Santa Fe Springs. I got busted down to training with a 7th grader, a 12-year-old boy named Noah Tillis, who's now a black belt, who has his own school in Whittier called Tillis Jiu-Jitsu. That kid was 12 years old. And here I am, a grown man. I'm a deputy, 250-pound man. I could barely breathe. And the only thing that kept that kid from getting up was my weight and my man strength. And I had 2 choices, guys. I had 2 choices what to do. And this is why I'm a very big advocate of law enforcement, people in general, self-defense, but especially if you're a first responder or you're a police officer, or even military, of course. But very important. I had 2 choices. One, guys, I could walk out of this dojo or this school, this academy, and hopefully nobody would ever remember me. And this nightmare put it behind me. And walk away from it because my ego was completely shattered and bruised because I just got my butt kicked by everybody, including a 12-year-old, okay? Or 2, do something about it and learn something about it and actually humble myself down to checking my ego at the door and learn this beautiful sport, which was back then was MMA, which was actually back then it was NHB. Then it evolved into MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that's how the journey began. Was right there.
Man, I appreciate you sharing that story, Mike. That's great stuff.
That's awesome, man. Thanks, Mike, for joining us. I'd like to talk to you about fight stoppages. I've been a longtime boxing fan. I'm starting to study MMA more. What it seems like in boxing, there is a quicker tendency to stop fights from a referee standpoint. What is your philosophy, and what is the philosophy of the UFC when it comes to stopping a fight or letting it continue?
Well, it's MMA is a sport. Okay, the UFC is a company. That's the biggest brand. So it's not the organization does not tell you what to do. Okay. So let's just
it's good information.
Clear that up. Yeah, the organization is an organization. The sport is MMA, and we are contracted by the athletic commissions.
Okay.
When it comes down to fighting, and even in boxing. Okay, because it comes down to the ultimate thing is safety of the fighter. Okay, to ensure that the fighter is not taking unnecessary damage. Are they going to be taking damage? 100% they are. That's what they do. This is what they signed up for. So it's a fight. We're going to let you fight. The point is, the line gets drawn is when a fighter is defenseless and taking unnecessary damage. And it sounds like a very easy question to answer, but it's very complex because everybody's different. Everybody's threshold is different. Everybody responds to adversity and damage different. There's some people that there's no quit and they would die in there. And those are the ones that are scary to watch because they don't quit. They just keep coming forward. And then there's some that are damaged. You can totally tell. And it's enough. It's a hard question to answer. It's a case-by-case basis. But at the end of the day is when the fighter's taking unnecessary damage and they can no longer intelligently defend themselves. And that's something we tell the fighter in the back. When there's no intelligible defense, they're not making a furtive movement to remove themselves from danger or to advance their position. And it's a nightmare that's occurring. And these are stuff that Big John McCarthy taught me and schooled a lot of us officials, these are the phrases and actually the words that he uses, which I'm taking from his vocabulary and his repertoire. That's where this comes from. So it's a tough question to answer, my friend.
I know.
It is very difficult. And hey, you know what, brother? There's stuff that the referee sees that the cameras do not pick up either.
Sure.
And therefore we're scrutinized for it. It's a double-edged sword. And sometimes we're heroes, and sometimes we're the most loneliest people in the arena and on the way home. And it sucks. Sometimes it could really suck. So it's very tough for sure.
Yeah, I don't envy you in those moments for sure. Even a recent fight with the Anjos and Moicano fight, I thought that could have been stopped in the third. Moicano comes back, has an excellent fifth round, and it just shows you, like you said, some guys will die in there and can fight their way back. But when you're in the ring, are you keeping a scorecard? Are you keeping a scorecard in your head? Do you know where the fighters are in each round?
A scorecard, no. But what I am paying attention to is damage. And there's a lot of stuff that we see that you don't see, that we see when a fighter's output is diminishing, when we know they're getting tired, when we know they're taking more damage than the other. And that is something we pay close attention to is the damage. Scorecard, sometimes you can tell, who's winning the fight. Okay. Yeah, that's just sometimes it's that visible and that's very apparent. But sometimes, when it's a very heavily contested bout and you got two combatants completely, banging hard and giving it all they got, and it's a very even match, it's hard to tell. That's when I tell myself, I'm glad I'm not a judge on this fight. Someone's going to be unhappy for sure.
Yeah, when the referee's saying he's glad he's not a judge.
I don't envy him at all.
That's exactly right. It's not like your job's easy either. That's how you know it's real. That's how you know it's real. Mike, appreciate you joining the show. And first of all, the mustache, absolutely legendary. It's the first time I'm growing a beard. You got any advice for me? How's it look? What are you thinking? Be honest, Mike.
Hey, look, brother. Be you, number one.
Love that.
That's all that matters. You got to be happy with yourself, regardless what anybody says or thinks or whatever. I think it looks great. I think you shouldn't cut it. I think you should go hard on the paint, my brother.
Wow.
Let it grow.
Look at that.
Be patient with it and put some Rogaine in it. It works.
Mike Beltran says, grow out the beard. You grow out the beard.
I'm going to put that quote on the wall at the house.
That's exactly right.
Hey, I want to talk about UFC and just
the explosion of popularity in the UFC the last decade. And I kind of want to get your opinion on where do you think the UFC is going to go in the next couple of years? Do you think it's only going to get bigger, less, or what do you think?
I think it's an amazing organization.
Yeah.
It's an amazing organization to work with. And first and foremost, I'm privileged to be there. Okay. It's not a sense of entitlement. It's a privilege for all of us to be there. And I want to throw that out there before I answer that question. And that includes every other organization that I work with. The sport of MMA is exploding tremendously for all organizations. The UFC is definitely has taken it to levels that has made everybody grow. So it's an amazing thing, and it's a beautiful ride. So there is no limits to the sky's the limit for the UFC and MMA and all of the organizations. So let's just keep riding this journey and enjoying it, man. It's great.
I agree. Mike, I do got to ask you, we had Natan Levy on here the other day, at kind of a young up-and-comer. How cool is it, a guy in your position, and we know the big names that have gone through the UFC that are going through there right now. I can go down the litany of that list. But being able in your position to watch young guys when they're trying to earn their stripes, whether it's going through a knockoff reality series of the UFC or going through Contender Series or something like that, and being able to watch them get to the big stage, do you keep up with the young guys and watch film on guys going in the octagon so you're able to kind of know how much damage they're used to taking and understanding maybe some tendencies that may help you during the fight as well? Is that a part of it you enjoy?
You know what? That's a very good question. Is because that's a very, very good question. And a lot of us officials, including judges, all of us included, we watch the films. We all watch fights. We're all like kind of nerds.
Yeah.
When it comes down to MMA, we're on threads and we talk about and we constructively critique each other when it comes down to fights all through the evolution of the sport. But piggybacking on what you said on the evolution of fighters as they're coming up, one of the good things about being in the state of California, as far as the MMA movement goes, is that there's an organization called CAMO, the California Amateur Mixed Martial Arts Organization, which is the amateur league for developing fighters. And I was there from the beginning of it, so I saw the evolution of many of the great fighters that we see today, including Brian Ortega and a bunch of other guys that come up that are just blossomed through that organization. And it's a safe organization, and we were there to watch many fighters. Ronda Rousey was one of them. I refereed her first fight. Wow. I can go on and on and on and on about the fighters that have developed through that program. So yes, we do watch development of the programs that are doing the local shows, amateur shows, local shows, and then mid-level shows. So obviously the big, Bellators, UFCs, and one FCs, and so forth and so on, and Arisen, and all the other big organizations that are around. They go in different directions. Fighters do, but watching those fights and watching those kids develop. 100%. We pay attention. We also pay attention to how much damage they've taken. Yeah. When they get baited into brawls, who's a brawler, who's not, who's been on the receiving end of those brawls, and that is something that you keep in the back of your brain housing group. You're like, okay, I'm going to watch more closely because I know this kid has suffered some severe damage. You can also look and see what their win and losses are, how they went out, and athletic commissions have that information available to you. And it behoove you to, as an official, to look into that so you know what you're dealing with. And ultimately, your job is not just to come in there and officiate a fight. There's a lot of things that go into the preparation of officiating young talent and young athletes, and even the super athletes that are megastars, is damage. Yeah. And we want to make sure that they're safe. We want to make sure that they don't have lingering effects of other battles and wars that they've had. And you have to be mindful of that. At the end of the day, fellas, and I'm being very honest with it, is with you guys and myself, is that we have to look at ourselves in the mirror. Yeah. And we own it for what happens to somebody in there. And I have to look at myself and have to be true to myself. Am I doing the right thing, and do I belong here? Yeah. And that's a very, very tough thing as an official. And I think all of the officials that are in our network, at least most of them, are all about that. We all care.
Yeah.
People may not see that on the outside, unfortunately, because we're the first they throw stones at us. But you know, it's very, very difficult to officiate and judge and referee on both sides, because we want to do the right thing. And guess we're not perfect sometimes, you know. So.
Well, you guys are a very important cog in a machine that's obviously doing really well, which I think is a reflection on your work. But, Mike, I appreciate you joining us, man. Mike Beltran, one of the best. Would love to get you back on. Like I said, I know you're a busy guy. Appreciate you sharing the stories with us. Some stuff I'm sure people have never heard. But, again, brother, I appreciate you coming on and excited to do this again.
You guys got it. Hey, thank you very much for having me, and you guys have a blessed day, guys. Take care.
Hey, you too. Appreciate
Thanks,
you, Mike.
Mike.
Appreciate it.
By the way, you guys need a Raider 75 Howie Long jersey in the back. That's all I ask for.
Consider it
Howie
done.
Long.
Yes, consider it
Howie
done.
Long.
All right,
For
appreciate
sure.
it, Mike.
All right, guys.